Hey everyone, welcome back. My name is Matt, or Cryptic if you prefer, and we're getting right back into our fan modeling tutorial. Today we're going to be focusing more on some of the higher quality details, as well as getting into some new tools to help you kind of flesh out your workflow and how you're going to build this model. Some of these tools are going to be very useful for working on things like cylindrical based objects, barrels, anything like that. And on top of that, we're going to work and spend some time on cleaning up and refining a lot of the edge surfaces on the model and getting it ready for our next step in the process. So without saying much more, let's jump right back on into the model. Okay, so today what we're going to be focusing on primarily is a lot of these little details that we're working on, but the main piece of today's tutorial is going to be the body of the fan. The body of the fan is pretty thin and it's got holes all over it. So what we're going to do is we're going to create these holes. Now, if you remember in the previous tutorial, we did 56 different sections on this cylinder. So here's what we want to do. I'm going to select the cylinder. I'm going to do Control D to duplicate it. From there, I'm going to hit the new object layer, and we're just going to name it fan underscore body underscore blocking. This is going to be important because we're going to need this. We're going to save that, and we're going to turn it off by checking the visibility layer. Now we have a piece that's there, and we can use it for reference later. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to select the fan. I'm going to select the reference. I'm going to do Shift I so we can isolate the body. And then from here, what we're going to do is we're going to select all of the faces. We're going to keep this top loop. Delete. So now this is what we're left with. Here, our main focus is going to be making sure that this looks just like one of these. So we're going to select these two faces. We're going to extrude. I'm going to pull that extrusion in to right about there. I might adjust it just a little bit because it does have a little bit of depth to it. Okay, and then from there, we're going to go to Mesh Tools, Insert Edge Loop. We're going to create a center edge loop that's going to allow us to create the oval shape right about there. Perfect. So the next concern then becomes the circle in the center. The easiest way to do this, in my opinion, is going to be to select these. We're going to do the same sort of extrusion on this side. We're going to try to match that as best as possible. Just to give us what we need. And we're still getting a weird shape there, so let's just do that. Maybe that. Okay, so there we go. All right. This is not going to be our final shape. So what we're going to do, we're going to go vertex. We're going to go up into our top view. We're going to select these verts here. I'm going to scale them out a bit. We want to give as much, we want to give as much space to work with in this section as possible. We're going to take this area now and we're going to extrude it inwards. This is going to be the base for the circle pinhole that we have. And then from there, we'll go to Edit Mesh and Circularize, just to give us the kind of the working point. Now, the next big part is going to be establishing our sizing on this guy. We want this to pop out a little bit more, just to kind of match up with that. And then the other issue is this is an oval shape. So with an oval shape, you're going to need more support to actually accomplish that shape. The other issue being that right now, we don't even have an oval shape, we have a rectangular shape. So we're going to pull these in. And then the same up here. To give us that shape. And then what we're going to do is we're going to delete these. We no longer need these. So delete those, say goodbye, don't need them. So now we have this shape here. We want to go ahead and do an offset edge loop tool to the center point of this. This is going to change our circle, but what we're trying to do is refine the shape of the oval right now. So we'll select these verts right here, and we're going to scale them out a little bit just to give that kind of oval shape to it. Now, one thing we have going on here that I don't like is there's very little spacing between here. I'm not a huge fan of that. if we look at the concept, there's a pretty good chunk of space there. There's a pretty good chunk of space in the front as well. So what we're going to do, we're going to pull these in as best as possible, as much as possible right there. We're going to do the same thing here. I'm going to pull it up a little bit. You're going to notice that you're screwing up your geometry here. We're going to fix that. Don't worry about it. Okay. So we have this now. Our oval is pretty much set. I'm going to go and do a mirror real quick. I'll pull this up. And we're going to just change that to the negative. And then we're going to work on the circle. We're going to end up deleting this mirrored object again. But for right now, this is going to be the focus. So we're going to go ahead and go to Edit Tools. And we're going to circularize it one more time just to make sure we get that shape in there. So we're pretty good there. I'm pretty happy with the way that's looking. Now we got to fix the topology. Because right now, I could tell you, we have some problems. Our biggest problems lie in the fact that we have these giant stretching faces that are really going to screw up our edge flow. So the big focus here is going to be fixing this edge flow as best as possible and turning it into a quad topology instead of just stretched faces that don't really support the model. So we're going to go to multi-cut. We're going to go and cut this. We're going to just create these series of cuts across the model. Instead of doing that, what I'm going to do is I'm actually just going to delete this half. We don't need it at the moment. And go back to our multi-cut tool. Go there. And go there. Okay. So we have these new cuts, including these faces that we don't want. We have created triangles, and we don't want to create those, so we're going to delete those. So what we're going to do, we're going to take this, we're going to drag this in, just kind of square it out as best as possible. And then from here, we're going to take these edges and we're going to extrude them out. We're going to merge these verts. And that's going to give us a nice quad flow. That's what we're looking for here. We're trying to make sure that when we look at this model and we add edge loops, that we have a nice quad flow. So we're going to do the same thing here. We're going to extrude these out. Vertex. We're going to merge them together. Okay. And there we have it. So right now, probably doesn't look like much. It's actually probably a little scary looking because it doesn't resemble anything of what we were working on before. But you will see how this changes. So I'm just grabbing this outer edge loop and straightening it out because it needs to be straightened. I'm going to do the same thing with this interior one. We're just going to straighten it out as best as possible. And now from here, we're going to go ahead and duplicate, or we're going to mirror it. So we're going to go to mesh, we're going to mirror. That's the first mirror. You can see we're starting to get our core shapes back again. And then we're going to go to mesh one more time. We're going to do mirror. I'm going to change this into the X direction and the positive direction. There we go. Okay. So there we have it. We've got our shapes. And if you notice, something got a little screwed up here in the center. So down here. So the easiest way that I'm just going to go ahead and fix this real quick is I'm just going to delete this chunk because for some reason it merged it. I'm going to take this chunk and we're just going to do mesh, edit mesh, duplicate. Go to mesh display, and then we're going to reverse the normals on it and then just drag it into place. Doesn't matter if it's super accurate. Then you're going to go to mesh, combine, and then we're going to just merge these verts real quick. This way you have a nice easy fix to what is otherwise kind of an annoying little problem. All right, so now we have this object. Looks great. It's a little bumpy, but that's something we're going to correct here. And I think we're going to do that now, actually. So we're going to go in here. We're going to go into our side view. And so you can really see in the side view what you're dealing with. And so we're going to scale and scale, scale and scale, scale and scale, scale. And then these ones are going to be different. So we're going to scale these. We're going to rotate them until it flattens out. And then same thing up here. I'm going to take this chunk And this one we're just going to scale flat because we don't really need to worry about any of the other weirdness going on there. Okay. And then we're going to, last one, we're going to scale, and then we're going to rotate these guys into place. Okay, that's going to give us nice flat geometry. What that did do, though, is it screwed up the shape and the orientation of our object, which is why we're going to go back in a minute here. So we're going to take our faces. We're going to paint select. I just find it faster to do it this way. Okay, so we have all of our faces selected. We're going to extrude them. About midway, delete, and then go ahead and merge them. Just make sure your merges are actually working. Sometimes they don't, like that. Sometimes they just leave verts behind for some reason, and I haven't really figured out why that happens, but it does happen. All right. And this is the last one. Gotta merge it, and nothing left behind. Okay, cool. So now we have this shape, and if we smooth it, you'll notice we're pretty good, aside from the fact that we need some supporting edge loops. That's why we're getting some divoting right now. But otherwise, this shape is ready to go. So the problem is, if we were to take this and array it in a circular fashion, it's not going to work. Because we've changed the orientation of the shape, it's no longer going to match the original, which is why I left this guy. So we're going to turn off isolation. And you can see, like, just by looking at this, it no longer even matches up at all. We're going to turn this guy on. And then we're going to isolate just these two. So Shift I to isolate. And we're going to look. And you can see we didn't change it too badly. I'm going to turn on my wireframe here. Oops. You can see we didn't really change it all that much. But there is just enough to where it'll screw us up. So we're going to rotate this piece and just do our best to match this up as clean as possible. And I'm going to take the entire section of verts right here, and I'm going to rotate it ever so slightly so it just matches up. And then the same thing over here on this side. Just make sure you're not selecting those center verts. We're going to pull those up. I'm going to rotate it ever so slightly. And then we're going to take this guy and just pull it up a bit to maintain that curvature. And so you can do a lot of this work this way too. You can just really match these up as best as possible. This is going to give us the optimal result that we're looking for. Okay. So with that done, now you can hide this again. So from here, we have our object. It's relatively clean. If you look at the topology one more time, everything looks fine. Everything's good. So we're going to go ahead and unsmooth that. And we're going to go to Modify. And we're going to go to Edit, Duplicate Special, and the Options box. I already have mine set up, but the way I got to this number was I went to Calculator. Since we're arraying this in a 360-degree motion, we're going to take 360, and we're going to divide it by 56. It's going to give us 6.42857, big ass number. We're not worried about that. What we are going to do is we're going to take that number and we're going to round it up to 6.43. That's going to get us as close as we need to be for the array so we can merge everything together. Then from here, we're going to hit apply. And you'll notice a problem. Because of all the work we did, we changed the center of our pivot. So we're going to need to repair that and fix it. So the best thing we can do to do this is we can look at this. We can change this and just drag this down and get this close. So I'm going to try to get this back to where it was. So that's our current pivot. So we're going to go right about here. second we were right there. As long as we're pretty close, this should work just fine. And we're going up a little bit, so we need to go down a tad bit. Okay, that should be good enough. We're going to turn off visibility on that. All right, now we'll hit apply, and that's going to do our rotation. So there we have it. Our object is now created. It's a bunch of little individual pieces though. So what we're going to do is we're going to go to object mode. We're going to select them all. We're going to go to mesh, combine. And then here's where the other trick happens. A lot of people will go through and manually, every single one of these, just click, click, merge, merge. You're going to waste your time doing that. Don't waste your time doing that. With certain objects, you can actually just select every single edge. As long as they are within range of each other, and you can just jack up that tolerance. And that's going to give you one piece. But now that we've made sure that that worked, go ahead, Control Z back to the one individual piece that you had. Because we're going to go ahead and just set this up for success now. So what we're going to do is we're going to reset back to this piece. The reason why we're doing this is we're going to add the edge loops that we don't get to add object-wide. Most of those are going to be just these little center pieces. So what we're going to do is we're going to go to Mesh Tools. We're going to go Insert Edge Loop. These are going to be our supporting edge loops. The other way you could do this too, in fact, the way that I think I want to do this, is you can bevel these. So what we'll do is we'll just select these and create a bevel. In certain cases, I'll use a bevel over edge loops just because A, it's faster. And, you know, it tends to look nicer. So we'll bevel. And we're going to kind of create a pretty minor bevel. Something like that. That's just going to give us that nice supported look. And yeah, I'm pretty okay with that actually. Got a little bit of funkiness over here for some reason. Okay, so that tells me that there's a little bit of a problem right there. But we're just going to fix that now. So we don't have to deal with that weirdness later. Because it created a triangle and we don't want to deal with that. So now that that's fixed, we got that good. Anything else like that, let's just go ahead and fix now. Don't know why it decided to do that on this side only, but we're going to just fix it and not deal with it. Again, this is really important to making sure that when you're working on your final asset, that your edge flow is going to work for whatever you need to do, whatever you need to use it for. That one didn't do that, so we're good there. I'm going to just do boom. Okay. All right, so we fixed that. Go ahead now, and you can go ahead and do your duplicate special. It should save your settings, so you can just go ahead and do it that way. And then we're going to go object mode. We're going to select all, and go mesh, combine, and then we'll go to edge, select all edges, and then just max that guy out. And that should, in theory, combine everything. Go ahead and look through. Make sure you don't have any weirdness going on. Doesn't look like we do, really. And it looks like we have some nice solid edge flow. So the reason we built this way, right? You're thinking this seemed like it was really complex. It doesn't make sense. The reason we built this way is so we can actually support it. So if we go to Mesh Tools now, if we do Insert Edge Loop, had we done this before, it wouldn't have worked. Now what we can do is we can drag an edge loop all the way across the object, and it's going to just give us what we need without having to worry about anything else. And we can do this whichever way we need to. We thankfully don't really need to do that in the center, so we're just going to drag these and support these edges here. And one thing you can do when you're working, if you notice it kind of looks like crap, if your computer can handle this, you can turn on the anti-aliasing in the viewport. It's just going to kind of help clean things up a little bit. 3. Yes, don't ask again. Okay. And you want to just look around, make sure that you don't have any other issues. Everything's looking okay. I am noticing there are some areas that did not get merged. This is where you're going to have to kind of go through and fix some minor issues. So anywhere you see this weird pinching, that means you had two verts that didn't get merged, and it looks like it was mostly down here in the center. So we'll just go through and fix these real quick. I'll probably just skip ahead, but go through your model, look for any pinching, and then clean that up as you are, and we'll be done with this piece. All right, so now that you've got that duplicated across, you look at it, it looks pretty smooth. We're not really seeing any issues with the curvature of it or anything like that. It's looking pretty great. So we're gonna go ahead and go show. I'm gonna turn off isolate select. And you can go ahead and delete your original piece. We don't really need that anymore. Just make sure that you also delete the layer. That way your scene doesn't get too muddied up. But there we have it. It's looking pretty good so far. So now the next thing we want to look at is going to be this piece. And the thing with this is that, again, it is the same piece in the back. So you've got the 3 screws on the front, 3 screws on the back. So that's super nice. We're not going to have to deal with a whole lot there. And making the screws actually should be, or making the screw holes actually should be pretty easy. Okay, so what we want to do now is we want to look at this. Now, the problem I'm having with this is that when we built it, there isn't really enough geometry to go around. So what I want to do is we do want to rebuild this real quick because I don't have enough supporting geometry there, especially for these screw holes that we want to add. So we're going to just real quickly pull in a new cylinder and rotate it by 90 degrees in the X. And then let's go ahead and center it as best as possible. Extend it out. Okay, so what we did was we didn't really increase the resolution on this at all when we built this. So I want 2 new types, or I want 2 new links right here in the center. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go into polycylinder. We're going to increase the access by a couple. I think I'm going to go a little bit more actually. So probably right about there. That's going to give us a smoother cylinder. It's going to give us the points that we need to actually work with this the way we want. And we're going to scale this. And then we're going to just real quickly rebuild this portion. And we're going to duplicate this to the back, so we're, again, not super worried about it matching at the moment. So we're going to pull that in. Delete that. Went a little too far with that. That's okay though. We're just going to merge them anyway. Make sure they all merge. They did. And then we're going to take this outer edge, scale it out a bit, thin this thing. I'm just going to try to match this back up with that guy. This is going to give us just so much more finite control over where we're putting these objects. Especially these screw holes. And that's one thing that's important to remember about your blocking is your blocking is probably going to, most times 9 out of 10, get deleted. You're just not going to keep it because there's really no reason to. It's just there to give you reference. I like to use my blocking models in the modeling process as much as possible, just to refrain from having to recreate geometry like this, but already this is looking so much better. There's much more support to it. And then from here, we're going to start adding our screw. So we're going to do an insert edge loop right in the center. Go there. And then from here, boom, 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 boom. We're going to extrude this guy in. Mesh tools, we're going to circularize it immediately. And we're just going to fix that because it looks awful. Scale it to flatten it. We're just gonna rebuild that flatness there. We want to not damage the face as much as possible. There we go. Okay, so from here we're going to extrude this inward, get our screw hole kind of set. And then the issue that we're facing now is we've got this kind of weird topology going on. We do want to kind of avoid this as much as possible. So what I'm going to do, we want to kind of just support this as best as possible that way, because when we smooth it, if you notice, you've got this weird geometry that's just not going to make any sense, and there's really no way to lock it in. So I'm going to go to my mesh tools. I'm going to insert edge loop. I'm going to support this back face and this front face real quick, as well as this interior face. And so if we smooth that now, you see we have a nice circle for the most part. We do have a little bit of a bow here, so we want to fix that as best as possible. Figure out why that's doing that. Okay, so we're going to select all these faces in here. We're going to rotate this. We're going to set that as best we can there. Make sure that looks okay. So that dent is almost gone. Just want to inset that as much as possible so we maintain that design there. Okay, so we're good there. The other thing is we need to add an outside edge loop. So we're going to go to mesh tools, insert edge loop. We're going to just add this exterior one to give a little bit of support there. We're going to support the underside as well, and the backside. This, when smooth now, should give us a pretty good indication of what we're looking at. Okay, we do need to scale this a tad bit. Just so it matches up. And there we have our screw hole. Okay, so one of the issues here that we're dealing with is I don't like the fact that we have these faces that are stretching all over the place. So we're going to actually delete these. We're going to retain this, but those are gone. I want to add 2 new edge loops in here, and we're going to try to mesh these up as best as possible so that when you smooth it, you don't even notice that they're there. So we're going to do an offset edge loop tool. We're going to go right about to the middle here. Q to escape. And then we're going to just slightly curve this to follow that same curve. We're going to do the same thing down here, just ever so slightly. Now what this is going to allow us to do is kind of build geometry in a way that we didn't have it before. So I'm going to bridge these 2 sections. Division on that one. Oops. Increase the division on that, but the I forgot to on this one, so I'm just going to do an insert edge loop tool just to get us where we need to be. All right, so now we have that. We have this new set of faces that we can work off of and hopefully kind of get this a little bit cleaner looking. So we're going to bridge to here. And we're going to bridge to here. Same thing here. And same thing here. So what we're doing here is we're just kind of ensuring that we isolate this face and it's not stretching all the way across the model. That way you have a much less of an area to focus on as far as indentation goes, and we can really just fix that easily if we need to. So now the important thing is you got to remember, so we're looking at this. This is technically our original object. So what we're going to do is we're going to find these guys right here. We're going to go directly across to right here. We're going to delete those. This is going to be where our other screw holes exist. So from here, we're going to go face, select all your faces. Just make sure you didn't grab anything extra. And then you're going to go to, we're going to go to our front view. We're going to do mesh, edit mesh, duplicate, change to world, pivot, and then rotate. Why is it not working? There we go. Sometimes it's a little bit finicky. So we're going to rotate and then rotate that into place. It should fit right exactly there. And then we're going to do Control D, and that should be a separate piece now. We can do Control D, and then you can rotate this one right into here. And so from here now, just try to line that up as best possible. Okay, from here, we're going to select all of these. We're going to go to Mesh, Combine, and then make sure you get down here. And we go to Edge, Edge, and we merge. Oh, that's Bridge. And we merge. And then the same up here. And then the same over here. Okay. So now that those are all merged together, we have our outer ring selected. We're going to scale it just a tad bit. And then the other thing I want to do here is we're going to go Shift-I. This is kind of wavy. So we're going to select all the faces on the front. I'm going to scale it just in case. And then I'm going to take this edge loop and do the same. Because this edge loop is kind of adding an unnecessary wave to this. I don't know why that's not working. It might be because there's no support. Let's do this. Insert edge loop. We're just gonna add one more ring of support. Thank you. And we're gonna scale that. There we go. That's what I was looking for. So mesh tools, insert edge loop, same thing over here. And then we'll scale it. 3. There we go. It still kind of curves, or it adds a little bit of waviness, but that's just kind of because of the smoothing. But really the whole point there was to make sure this lines up well with this. And if we turn off wireframe, it looks pretty good. We do have a little bit of an indent up here that needs to be resolved. So what we'll do is we'll just drag these in. And I think with these two, we'll have to do it. Okay. Cool. And unfortunately, that's kind of thrown off the whole shape of this thing. So let's look at it from the front view. So if we select both of these, there's a gap down here, and you can see it pretty clearly here. So we're gonna extend and scale it out and then pull it down. I think because the center point isn't exactly on par with it, which it should be. Let's see, it looks like we're good now. Yeah, so we're good there. Okay. The only thing is now is everything needs to be moved down, but that's also okay. So we're gonna call this our new center point. We're gonna delete the old one. Control D, and then we're gonna just modify, freeze transformations, and we're gonna flip it in the Z-axis and drag it to the back like we did with the first one. Okay, so there we go. So now we have this nice screw hole detail. We don't have screws to put in there yet, but we will eventually. So some of the next things I want to do, we're going to smooth these, getting the look that we want, and then we're going to look at this guy. So this guy, again, doesn't have a whole lot of shape to it. It's pretty basic, so we're just going to smooth it and support it. So edit mesh, mesh tools, insert edge loop. Just going to give it some base support. And in fact, what I want to do, we're not going to give it an edge loop there. We're going to delete the edge loop. So mesh tools, edit mesh, delete edge vertex. I want it to kind of smooth out a bit. Mesh tools, insert edge loop. I'm just going to keep doing this. And we've supported that. So now, aside from that needing to be a little bit thicker, we have that nice shape that matches pretty well with the one that's in the thing. I think this edge is probably a little sharp. So what I want to do is probably just drag this back a bit. And smooth it. Okay, that's better. Yeah, I like that more. Okay, so there we go. So we've got the front and the back done. And the same thing here, we can smooth these. Oops. And now let's work on the back piece. Okay, so looking at the back piece here, we're going to pull up our reference image again. It's pretty basic, aside from the fact that there are holes in it. So what we need to do is we need to create this hole. These screws are face mount, so we don't need to make holes for them, but we do need to create holes for these. I'm not necessarily worried about creating a hole for the power switch because it's just a detail that sits onto it. So we're really not going to worry too much about it, but I do want to make sure we get these. So what we're going to do is we're going to pull this out first of all. I don't know how it got sunken in like that. And we're going to go to show, isolate, view selected. So here's our shape. And so we do have kind of an idea on how this works. It looks like it's every 2. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 12 of them. So the question is can we do 12 of them? So we have, that'll be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Can't do 12 unless we redo this shape. So we're going to go ahead and redo the blocking of this. I'm going to import a new cylinder. I'm going to rotate it in the X 90 degrees. And we're going to try to center it as best we can. Selected. Okay, so we're going to go here. Centered. Scale it out. We got the same shape. Okay. So what we need to do in order to get this where we want, we need to recount. So we got 1, 2, 3, but technically we need 2 more edge loops. So what we're going to do is we're going to increase this to, or I'm sorry, 2 more subdivisions. We're going to increase this to 22. 1 more subdivision. 2 more subdivisions technically. Okay, so there we go. So we have what we need now. All right, so we can now scale this and we can make what we need to make. So the good news is this is a pretty straightforward object. Isn't really anything super detailed about it. And we're going to worry about quadding this out once we're done with it. Show isolate view selected. All right, so we're going to pull this guy in. Okay. And then what I want to do is just sharpen that a little bit. Just try to get that where we need it. Okay, so there we go. There we have it. All right, so the easiest way to do this is going to be the same way we did everything else. We're going to radial spin it. So we're going to delete everything except for this slice. I'm going to delete that. So here's our slice. The nice thing is that technically this looks into the object, so all we need is just a deep cut. We don't really need anything else. So mesh tools, we're going to insert an edge loop here. And then we're going to just scale this in. And then we're just going to shape this ourselves. I'm going to change the kind of the rotation on that and just try to smooth it out a bit. And then we're going to go into our modeling toolkit. And we're going to change back to the surface slide constraint. We're just going to work with the model. So just slide. And these have kind of like a, almost like a teardrop shape. So we'll just slide that, and then we'll scale it inwards a bit. And then the same thing here. And then for sure up here. So when we smooth that, it's going to look terrible. But what we can do is we can, I think actually what I want to do is pull these up a little bit more. Yeah, there we go. All right, so that's more of the teardrop shape that we're looking for. So we're going to take this, we're going to extrude this in. We're actually going to change the world constraint, just extrude it straight back. You want this to kind of be a dark hole, so like if you're looking at the model, you don't see directly inside of it. But we're not going to worry about modeling it straight through, because doing so is going to kind of give you direct access to the back of this thing, and we don't really care about that detail, so we're not super worried about it. All right, so from there we'll go Mesh Tools, Insert Edge Loop. We're going to just support it because we're going to duplicate this. Give it a little bit of edge support there. And then we're going to leave all that for the last part. All right, so we're going to go to File and Save first. And then we're going to go to Object Mode. Okay, so now that we have our piece, we're going to go to Edit, Duplicate Special. We're going to change this to 30 degrees. We're going to change this to 12. We got to that by dividing 360 by 12. The reason we're doing the even number here is because we've already cut this in half. So once we duplicate that, it might give us an extra face, but otherwise we're good there. So now we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. So we have our 12 pieces that we need. The only problem I'm seeing is honestly, they're too big. So we're gonna Control Z all that. And then we're just gonna select all these pieces here. And we're gonna just scale it. Oops. All right, so select all those, make sure your transform constraints turned off, and then scale. And I might actually extend it a little bit there, and then we'll just pull it back out. Just make sure it's flush. And right now it's not looking very flush, so we need to rotate and just kind of make it there. One way you can fix that is by going like this, holding D and rotating your gizmo, and then you can change your orient and you can scale it and flatten it. So there we go. That's much better, much nicer. I still question whether that's too big. So if I smooth it, I think I may want to go just a little bit smaller. And this is part of the whole process, right? Is you're trying to make sure that you're matching your reference as best as possible. We'll go a little bit smaller. Make sure to just face that again. We'll go look at it in our side view to make sure it's actually matching up with the edge that it's supposed to. Okay, cool. We're gonna go File, Save Scene, just because we're doing a special duplication, Duplicate Special, and you should be able to just reapply it with what you had. Delete the extra face because for some reason it does that. So now we have our back piece with our holes. So we're gonna just select all of these, and I'm seeing an issue. And that issue is we're no longer flat. Okay, so we need to fix that. Once again, from moving this, we somehow screwed up the face itself. So we're just gonna rotate that, line it up, flatten it. And then this should make sure that we are actually flat instead of, in fact, I'm going to do the same thing here. I don't know if that just screwed me up or not. I don't think it did. Modify, edit. We're going to duplicate special again. Just check it, make sure. And it looks like if we smooth, looks like it'll be okay. All right, we're going to grab that extra face, delete it. Select all of these guys. I'm gonna go to Mesh Tools, or Mesh, and Combine. And then we can try the edge loop thing here. See if it'll let us just merge everything. Actually, let's just select it all. Screw it. See what happens. We'll change the tolerance up. See what happens. 3. It worked. I didn't do anything wrong. All right, cool. So we got that shape now. The thing I want to fix now is this is no longer straight. So we'll select all of these. These are kind of their own individual faces now. So they're no longer an interconnected loop. We're going to fix that as well. What I'm going to do, take this guy, scale it inwards. Okay, so we're nice and flat. And then Mesh Tools, Insert Edge Loop. We're going to do this. And then we're going to go Edge, select them all. We're going to use this to create an extra piece of geometry. Just a little one. We don't want to create anything crazy, but we are going to bring it right over here, over the center. This way we just have a little bit more support to work with. And then what we're going to do is just extend the back one just so it reaches up and makes up for that. Okay, so we're good there. So we've got that. So we're going to go to Mesh Tools, Insert Edge Loop. We're just going to kind of support this guy out. Escape 3. And we're just going to make sure we're getting the shape that we want. It looks like we are. Now for the next part, which is where we're going to take, oops. I'm going to select all of these guys. We're going to pull them in. Leave a little piece right there. Pull them in more. And then what I'm going to do, pull that in as much as possible and then delete it there. Do the same thing in the back. Just leave that little edge loop. Do one right there. And then pull this in until you can see kind of the same connection point. And then we'll just delete that. So from here, we'll quad this out real quick. And deselect those, deselect those. We're gonna go bridge. Nice. Add a division. Perfect. I'm gonna scale these out so they match up with those. And then merge and merge. 3. Much nicer. Love that. Okay, so show, isolate, view selected. We're going to do the back real quick. Remember, all I'm doing is bridging all but 2 of them and adding a division. This allows you to quad it out, and that way you don't get that weird center pinching, because nobody wants that. Nobody wants their model to look like that. And then just for an extra little detail here, we're going to take all of this in the middle. And we're just going to pull it in. And then Mesh Tools, Insert Edge Loop. Support it. Just in case we ever want to add more detail to this. Not required, but I decided to do it. And then the only other thing I've got here is this edge is too forward, so I'm going to pull it back a little bit. The only issue I'm seeing here is I see a little bit of lumpiness going on. And unfortunately, that's kind of going to damage the look of this model. So what we're going to do is just a real quick way to fix it. I'm going to rotate a new cylinder 90 degrees. Sorry, rotate 90 degrees. And then we'll center it with this puck piece. We're going to scale this out. And then let's change this to 24 like we have the other one. And then I'm going to basically just show, isolate, view selected. I'm going to Mesh Tools, Insert Edge Loop. We're going to support this. This piece is a throwaway. Don't spend a lot of time on this. Okay, there we go. So we have that. So now what we can do is we can look in here and we can scale this down and you can see where we need to actually kind of pull things out. So what we're going to do is we're just going to select these every so often. Actually, we just pull them in. We just want to line them up as best as we can. This is just kind of a quick and dirty way of fixing this. I don't expect this to be like the professional way to do it, but it's the way that I just like to quick and dirty fix models. You're trying your best not to destroy your geometry. And where you can, just use the standard handle, but most of these you do actually have to pull it in like that. So just work your way around real quick, adjust it, because ideally you're working with a perfect cylinder at this point. And what we had was kind of not a perfect cylinder. It was quite bumpy. And we'll just correct that. And then once these are all lined up, the cool thing is you can just go and scale the object uniformly. You can Let's see where we messed up in some places. Okay. Just want to take one last look at this and make sure we got everything. Down here we kind of pulled a little bit too far. Okay, so let's look at this now. It's a lot better shaped. We've got a little bit of flat up here. At least from what I can tell. Actually might be okay. I think we can call that good. Alright, so show, isolate view selected. That's a lot better. It looks more right now. So that handles the back cap. Okay, the next thing we're going to work on is the fan blade. The fan blade has some interesting shape to it. So we're going to show, isolate view selected. Oh, make sure you have your reference selected too. So the fan blade has these fins and this like indent, or it's an outdent. I'm not really sure. It looks like it's an indent. So what we're going to do is we're going to do an indent. So once again, we're going to just delete the fan blade in its entirety, except for one corner that we need. And then if you paid attention in the last tutorial, I screwed up. I made an error. I didn't connect this face the way I wanted to. So I'm going to do that real quick. What I'm going to do is take these verts, drag them in, drag this out a little bit, drag this up. These are going to merge to straight here. And this is something I should have done in the other tutorial. I screwed up and messed up. So if you haven't done this yet, this is a perfect opportunity to fix it now before we move on. Just kind of shape that out a little bit more. Okay, edge, 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 and we're gonna bridge that. Okay, so now the fan blade is what it should be. So what we have to do is we have to create this weird shape. The easiest way is honestly just gonna be to drag this. I'm gonna go back in here and change it to surface slide because we just want to make sure we maintain that. And we're just gonna shape this actual shape onto the blade itself. And so it has kind of this like swoop before it comes to like a point. And so what we're going to do is we're going to take this point and we're going to pull it this way. And we're not going to add any extra geometry. I don't think we really need to. We're just trying to shape this as best as we can. And that honestly looks pretty good. I'm not super worried about it. The only issue I have is that we're probably going to need to pull. We're going to need to increase the thickness of this. So select your back faces. And then make sure it didn't grab any of the front ones by accident. Just make the blade a little bit thicker. Turn off your constraint. Yeah, just a little bit thicker. Because this is going to indent, so it's going to look kind of wonky. But the nice thing is all we have to do is pull it in and then scale it a little bit. And that should, in theory, give us that nice dent that we're looking for. So that handles that. The only issue now is that our blade is way too thick on the outer edge. So we're going to scale the blade a bit. So we're going to go D. I'm going to change our pivot. Just thin the blade out a bit, pull it back. Same thing goes for here. This one we can probably just do right here. Not super worried about the shaping of it because this blade gets smooth that it really doesn't matter. We're gonna rotate that. Scale this, pull it back a bit. Make sure we keep that blade relatively straight and then smooth it. So now we have a bit of a smoother blade. The back of this fan blade is still probably a little too thick. So I'm just gonna adjust it where I can and pull it where I can. So I don't want to go through my model, but I do want to keep this as thin as possible. And you can see right there, can't go very far there, but we can go a little bit there, and then maybe even a little bit more there. And then the only other thing here that we're really going to do is, if you can, no, we're really not actually. We're going to just fix the topology on the back of the fan. Okay. Now what we want to do is kind of support it, because these blades go basically directly into the body of this. And we have a little bit of a problem down here that we created by scaling this the way we did. So we're going to fix this real quick. Must have accidentally selected something I shouldn't have, which has been known to happen. It's Maya. Okay. So what sucks here is that if we go Mesh Tools, Insert Edge Loop to support this, it's going to put this around the entire model. We don't necessarily want that. What we can do, actually kind of prefer that. I'm going to leave that one. What we can do though is we're going to make sure we add an edge loop here. So Insert Edge Loop, we're going to support from the front. And we're going to try to support from the back too. Q Escape 3. We're trying to make that look like it meshes with the blade as easily as possible, but the problem is we just don't have the geometry there. So what I want to do is I'm going to take all of these faces. I'm going to select them all. I'm going to deselect any of these. I want purely just the fan faces. And then what we're gonna do is we're gonna extract this. So Mesh Tools, we're gonna go to Edit Mesh, Extract. And then we're just gonna pull it up. Oh, no, we're gonna go to World. And we're gonna pull it up slightly and move it over slightly. And then we're gonna go to Modify, Center Pivot. And we're gonna try to just edge this up as best as possible. Show Isolate View Selected. Selected. Okay. We're going to get this as close as we can. Back to where it was. Okay. And it looks like we accidentally grabbed a little bit of extra. So just delete those. We'll rebuild them real quick. And so what we're going to do here is we're going to bridge. I grabbed a lot of extra, actually. Okay. So do a little bit of cleanup on this. Delete anything that doesn't need to be there. We have this additional edge loop that we created. We're going to actually go Edit Mesh, Mesh Tools, Edit Mesh, Delete Edge Vertex. We're going to do the same thing here. We're trying to make sure that we can just bridge this across and add it later. So any of these extra edge loops, let's just get rid of them now. And then we're going to go Select. Actually, we're going to merge these two. So we're going to go Edit Mesh, Mesh Tools. We're going to go to Mesh, Combine. And we're going to go select those and select those. So that should be able to be bridged. It is. And so there was a very specific reason why we did it this way. And that is because it gives us the geometry to lock this down to the body of the fan blade. So now if we go Insert Edge Loop, we can go boom, boom. We can add one here. And then if we need to, we can still add this individual one back here. And so if I Q and then smooth, now it's flush with the body instead of like bulbousing out like it was. and we can finish this off. So we can go boom. We can just edge loop this out. We will have to scale the fan blade a little bit because we did technically make it a tad bit bigger. But nothing we really have to worry about here. So now that that's there, that's good. I'm not in love with the way that this is looking right now, so I'm going to delete that extra edge loop that I added. Let's see if that gives me a better, that's a better result. I'm much more happier with that. So aside from this weirdness that we have back here, which we're going to work on now, we're good to go. So we're going to just pull this back a bit. Right there. And we're going to add some support to it as well. Mesh tools, insert edge loop. Some support there, some support there, and some support there. So now if we smooth this, we have the indented shape that we were looking for. And it's not as like crazy as the one there. It's not as visible. So I think what we'll do, we're going to add an edge loop. There we go. That gives it that nice deep look. So we're good there. The blade up here needs a little bit more shaping just to kind of round it out. We'll just pull. Okay, much better. Okay, so there we have our fan blade. So same thing here. We're going to just duplicate special it. So we're going to go duplicate special. We only need 3 copies. And these are going to be in 90-degree increments. Oh no, my center point's broken again. Okay, so take this. Oh. Take it, move it, just put it right here, get it as centered to the object itself as possible. Boom. And apply. And the only thing we have to do is redo the center. So we have our fan blades. It's actually looking pretty great. Only thing, I think we're a little bit, yeah, we're a little too sharp on this edge, so we'll clean that up real quick here. But otherwise, shape-wise, they look like they're flowing the way they need to. The gap is much better on the center now. The only other thing I'm noticing is they're rotated kind of the wrong way. So let's fix that. That was an issue we had with the first model. So we'll select everything. Let's just select that, deselect that. Get all this deselected. These are kind of the finer things. If this doesn't matter to you too much, then don't worry about it. But it does kind of actually bother me. So we're going to rotate the blade. And we're going to change the orientation of the pivot here. So when we rotate, we're just rotating the geometry itself. And that'll give us that nice scoop that we're looking for. And then you just want to make sure that this didn't get screwed up too badly, and it sure as hell did. So let's just fix that as best as we can. Might just need to pull the blade back a bit. And then just adjust some of these minor faces. Okay. And up here I got jacked up too. So, kind of the problem with rotating after you're done is you deal with problems like this. So we're going to go ahead and just clean all this up as best as we can. Try to get these back into their places. Don't even know what's going on there. There we go. Okay. You're going to end up doing a little bit of reshaping on the back of the fan. That's okay. We're just trying to make sure that we maintain the correct look. And then this needs to be kind of pulled down into the body of it. A little bit more. 3. That way it smooths out. That's fine. Not a huge fan of the way that looks, but we'll see what we can do to adjust this. That's better, even though it's still kind of pinching. The only issue there is we can't really fix that pinch without adding geometry in the center. And I'm not looking to do that because it's going to screw up the actual like circular of the blade. 3. But that's such a minute detail that we're probably not going to notice it from afar. So we've got the blade. We're doing what we need to. Modify, edit, duplicate special. Boom. Okay, so now the blade is kind of doing what it needs to. Still like sitting far too far back. All right. This is kind of where it comes down to personal preference. Like, do you care that the blade looks exact? It's up to you. I'm trying to make this look exactly like or as close to exactly like the reference as possible. You obviously do not have to, but I'm a bit of a perfectionist, so just trying to, oops. Is that selected? That's not selected. It was rotating with it, but that'll cause issues if I don't select this edge. Trying to just do this from the top up here. That way it doesn't trash the mesh down below. And then I just need to change my orientation here a bit. Rotate it forward. Pull it forward. Pull it out. Because most blades kind of have this like forward push to them. Okay. And then again, just come back here and just kind of play with your mesh a bit. Just try to clean it up as best you can. Because this is going to cause issues when you start rotating large chunks of geometry. If you even decide to do this part. If not, just skip to the next part. Okay. And I'm just really not a fan of the way the back looks. So we're going to extend that out a bit. 3. Gives us a little bit better of a thing. It's just, it's like slightly pinching. And I don't want it to be pinching. So we're going to just adjust this as best we can. Clean that up. Try to straighten up some of this geometry a bit. This can actually go right here. And we have this triangle that popped up out of nowhere. It's not a triangle, it's a quad. That's okay. We'll fix that down here too. Okay, so if I smooth that, okay. That's a much better look. I'm much more happy with that. So we're gonna go ahead and duplicate around. Edit, duplicate special. Okay. All right, so we're gonna go ahead and go mesh, combine. And then make sure you delete these interior faces. And we are dealing with some sort of weirdness. Okay. So we have a little bit of a problem. We need to spend a little bit more time adjusting these surface pieces because it seems like somehow a bunch of stuff got squished. So we'll fix that. These somehow got pulled in. Just work with your constraints here. Try to make sure you're getting things back to where they were. This is going to be a little bit difficult. Okay, so somehow this got pulled out or in or something. I don't know what happened there. Okay. So, yep, the transform is off just by a hair. So we'll go in, we'll zoom in as close as we can. This is probably about as close as we're going to get. And we'll just modify, edit, duplicate special. All right, so we're going to combine these, mesh, combine. We're going to edge, and we're going to see if this will let us just do this. I'm hoping so. Aside from the obvious problems, I think it worked. So let's delete these. We're going to select all of these. These should all be the same piece. Yep, not a big deal. Okay. Just delete those. Delete those. Delete those. Okay. So if I select this edge, that should be one piece. It is. Cool. We're good. All right. And then this is one piece. Yes. It is. So if I smooth it, we are circular again. Okay. So look at that. So perfect. So we got our piece there. Aside from the little mismatch that happened with the mesh, we're going to go through our normal work process to quad this out. We're going to extrude, pull it inwards. And the same with the back. And technically this is where if you wanted to, and I think actually we might. Let's do this. We're going to bridge these. We'll just scale them in and bridge. And then we have a little hole. The only problem I'm seeing here is that it's kind of wompy because of the way we did that. So we'll go to mesh, edit mesh, and circularize. And just really clean that up real quick. And then we'll line it up. All of these issues can be easily corrected, so you just have to know what tools you're using to fix them. Insert edge loop, we're going to drag that. We're going to drag that, drag that. And just add those additional support loops that we need. Escape 3. And we have our fan blade. Go show, isolate, select. It's inside the body now. We're all good there. Looks fine. The last part we're going to work on this tutorial is these knobs. And the knobs are pretty simple. So we're going to focus. Make sure you save. I'll save scene. And really the only detail that's on these is the gripping. So what we're going to do is we're going to delete half of it. Okay, so we have half of it. And we're going to do the same thing, just the quarter. Make sure you don't delete anything you don't need to delete, so delete. Okay, so we should have a perfect little piece. We do. It's really easy to fix real quick. And then we're going to just select these three, and we're going to extrude them out and pull them in. Maybe a little bit less so it's not as like geary. And then the same thing here. And if you just look at this in the side view, you can tell if you're right about, yeah, you're pretty good there. I think we're pretty even, so. That's really all we're doing with this portion. This portion is really simple. You could go deeper into this and you could separate all these pieces and make them individual pieces, but for a detail like this, I don't really care to. I wouldn't in general anyway, unless you were making like a demonstration model. So we're going to go ahead and go to edit, duplicate special. We're going to do the same duplicate special, we're just going to do it in a different direction. So we're going to rotate 90 in this direction instead. Apply, and there we go. We have that. We will have to redo the quadding on this, but that's okay. So close that, mesh, combine, and then just tab to paint. And delete. And then the same thing over here. Tab to paint. And delete. And then it's as easy as selecting. Oh, hey, what happened there? So that's kind of weird. It left some faces behind. I wonder why it did that. Are these separated somehow? That's odd. I don't know why I did that. All right, so easy enough to fix. We'll just bridge them real quick. That shouldn't cause us any problems down the road. If it does, we'll work through it. But there we go. Cool. So now we'll just go. Oh, these weren't merged yet. Okay, so we go ahead and merge. See, and there's a problem. So you can see how this is pulling all this together. It's not exactly what we wanted to do, but I'd rather just fix that than have to redo everything. So we'll just delete that, and then we'll just rebuild this. All right, and easy enough. Select the whole edge group, extrude it, pull it out, pull it in, and then we'll select the whole thing, deselect these two, bridge, add a division, change these verts, and boom, those are sealed. And then the same thing back here. Just make sure you got the ones that you need. Bridge, one division, vertex. Okay. We'll scale that out. Merge those two. Boom. All right. So the last thing we have to do is support it. So mesh tools, insert edge loop. We can just add the geometry here and add it here. And then we'll do here. And we'll leave a little bit of a gap here. In fact, honestly, what I'm going to do, I'm going to bevel this because why not? We'll add a little bit of a bevel to it just to make it look nice. And then mesh tools, insert edge loop. We're going to just support the back of this guy now. Get rid of some of this gnarly looking black geometry because it's the reason the geometry turns black like that is because it's stretching, and the way it's stretching, it's not going to provide a flat surface for rendering. See, we have an issue here, so we can't. We missed some edge loops, so some stuff didn't get merged back here, which is okay. We just need to figure out where. And usually smooth mode is the best way to actually define that and figure it out, because you can see where it's tugging. Okay. So mesh tools, insert edge loop, continue on our path. And your shape doesn't even need to be this complex if you wanted to just do a straight cylinder. I just did this because it does kind of make sense technically. So now we have this nice little knob. My only thing is I'm thinking I might add one edge loop here just to add some definition to it. Yeah, that added a little bit more, but not what I was hoping for. I think I'll just pull this out. 3. That's better. I like that more. Alright, show, isolate, view selected. Cool. And there we have that. That basically matches that one. And then what we can do is we can just delete this guy. And then Control D. Scale in the Z. Scale in the X. And pull it over. right about right, huh? Yeah. Okay, show, isolate, view selected. Okay, and then the last thing I really want to do before I end this is I'm going to finish this part off. So show, isolate, view selected. We are not doing anything special with this. There's no need to. We're just going to clean it up real quick. Mesh tools, insert edge loop. So we're going to just add a supporting edge loop. Add one, and then just support these little edges right here. Isolate view selected. Okay. So now we have what is considered a pretty high polygon model. This is kind of what your standard hard surface model is going to end up looking like. We did a lot with this. We did the front cap, we did the front facing and the back facing rings, we did the main body itself, as well as the rear cap for where the power supply and all that stuff sits. And then in the next tutorial, we're going to focus on just kind of finishing off the edge flow on a couple other pieces. In fact, just might as well knock it out right now. Just add your little support edge loops right here and really get this guy ready to go. I think that's all we really need. Yeah, that's all we really need for that. Okay, so now all that's ready. So cool. So there you have it. You have basically gotten to the next level on this model. And so in the next one, we will create some of the accessory pieces. We will finish off some of the internal geometry. We're going to create the screws that actually go into this, because screws themselves are actually pretty complex little pieces. And we'll finish up the fan. And then from there, we'll move on to UVing. We'll pull it into Substance Painter. We'll create some material IDs. We'll bake everything. And we'll create some materials for this thing. So that's it for this tutorial. I hope you learned something. I hope you enjoyed it. If you have questions, leave me comments down below. In my Discord, there is a support section for my tutorials. If you're having an issue with a tutorial, send a message in there. I'll get to you as soon as I can. And I'll see you all in the next one.